All right, hello everybody. Welcome to part 2 of episode 8 of Unbiased America Live. We have a regular band of misfits. We have Grant Phillips of We Are Capitalists and the Modern Libertarian in his hoodie, standing in solidarity with Trayvon. We have Kevin Ryan of Unbiased America. He's got a new haircut, and his hair has this tone to it that I can't quite pin down. It looks like he's standing in solidarity with Just for Men. We have
touch of gray,
touch of gray to add a little sophistication in there. We also have Michael Lee of Being Liberal Logic, also of Being Classically Liberal. He looks like he finally was able to grow a beard. I think him and I have been meeting up on Google Plus. I've been teaching him to do push-ups, and like eat steaks and stuff. So he's been able to grow a beard. Good for you, Mike. It's about time.
No, thank you.
So we had a lot going on this past week, obviously with the debate, which was a huge spectacle. I know there's a ton of Trump lovers on this panel here because that's all everybody wants to talk about is Donald Trump and Donald Trump this and that. I'm so sick of the Donald Trump thing. But first, let's talk about our little Alan West interview here. Kevin, was there anything you learned that you may not have known after the interview, or did you come out learning anything?
No, well, I'm obviously an expert on foreign policy, so I already knew most of that. But I was very impressed with Colonel West. I mean, we were talking after the show, and I made the point that you can tell a good leader by how effectively he answers questions. And I mean, he just flowed right into the answers. He knew everything he was talking about. There was no I don't knows or anything like that. He was very impressive as somebody who really stood out as somebody who knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to agree with everything he says, but you know that he has the experience and he's intelligent enough to elucidate his answers, which it tells you why he's such a successful leader.
So the complete antithesis of a Grant Phillips, essentially.
Exactly. Okay. The opposite. Bizarro Grant.
I mean, was there anything on substance that I mean, he knew so much about the deal. Like, I mean, I had researched it, and I mean, there wasn't like I was trying to get him to a point where maybe he would have to think a little bit, I think, after the first question. And I don't know, he just kind of, it's like he read all 159 pages of it, really, because I have leafed through it to find things that, I don't know, and I heard other commentators talk about and tried to get him on something that hasn't really been discussed much. I didn't have a chance to ask about the treaty thing, but he mentioned that too. Like, it's not a treaty, and Congress not being, or the Senate specifically not being able to vote on it. He mentioned that. He mentioned pretty much everything that I was going to bring up. So he knew his stuff. And you're right, Kevin. The guy is a born leader. Grant hasn't watched it yet, so he hasn't done his due diligence.
I have a full-time job, unlike you, being unemployed and just being able to just spend my time however I want.
I know.
Damn hippie in California.
Don't you work at a 7-Eleven or something?
But not anymore. Not after I got shot. But on Alan West, though, I'm sure he did a great job. He's a really articulate guy. I've read a couple of his things on his website, and it's definitely good. So. Great. I'll be sure to watch it and leave rude comments on YouTube.
Yeah, just for the uber libertarians out there, I wanted to get into more questions about, if we just leave the Middle East alone, maybe they'd stop bothering us. If we just stopped supporting Israel, maybe that's the problem, that they would just leave us alone. We didn't have enough time. I didn't want to keep them too long. They gave us 15 minutes as is. I wanted more, but he was nice enough to come on, and hopefully we'll have him back again. But I mean, I'd really like to get him. I'd really like to get like a foreign policy analyst on here to answer those questions. Us talking about it really means little. Nobody wants to hear what Kevin has to say. Certainly, no one wants to hear what Grant has to say.
No. Well, you're a huge statist, so we all know what you're gonna. Will is a neocon. He probably wants to invade China.
I don't know why we're not. I don't know why we haven't. I really don't.
Nuke North Korea.
No, seriously, let's get to the bottom of this. I'm going to ask you a question, Will. Because we've been making fun of this since you started on the show. Are you a neocon? I mean, do you actually support action, boots on the ground in Iraq? Do you support tougher action against Russia, for example? should we be reinforcing Eastern Europe? I mean, what's your take on these things?
Just to give you a better idea of where I stand on foreign policy, have you ever heard of a man by the name of Agamemnon?
Never heard of him. Although I did have a minor in Greek classics, so.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, that guy pretty much embodies my foreign policy. You know what I mean? I'm looking for any reason to attack Troy at this point. And, you know, Troy could be fill-in-the-blank country. I want to go after it. I want to nail it. I want to take it out.
No, come on. No BS. Tell us
No,
truly.
my foreign policy is common sense.
A lot of our guests, because a lot of our viewers are, you know, they're isolationists, and they don't like. When we said Alan West was coming on, a lot of people were criticizing him, saying he's a, you know, warmonger and so forth.
No, I mean, you know, pre-World War II, I would be an isolationist, but I think we learned at that time it's a little hard to be an isolationist, you know, anymore. I think certainly with the global economy, and Mike always brings this up, and we talk about it a lot, and facilitating trade, certainly in the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, we're the ones that are keeping the peace there. We protect most of Western Europe from specifically Russia, and we've seen what happens when you have a feckless leader and a bad foreign policy with Russia. They start to take over areas of Eastern Europe. I don't think... I think if you were to just put it into I don't know, you know, to make it quick and easy, it's whatever best protects the Constitution of the United States of America, like whatever is in our best interests and the best interests of our allies. That doesn't mean you invade countries, you wantonly invade countries. That's not what it's about. If it's in the best interest of national security of the United States of America. I don't think nation building is in our best interest. I don't think it ever was. I don't think it ever will be. I think wars are fought to be won, and if you're going to deploy your military, you do it with the intention of winning and annihilating the enemy. You don't do it with the intention of building a nation. So I think with those additional costs added to going to war, leaders would be more, you know, they would be more hesitant just to go into like Iraq per se or into Afghanistan per se. I think you know, you raise the costs on anything, you get less of it. So that would be my stance.
So it should be more. I mean, you'd be in favor of going after the Barbary pirates.
Yeah, sure, because they were affecting trade and they were kidnapping people and selling them into slavery. So yes, they were kidnapping Americans.
What about protecting the Straits of Hormuz, like we basically have been doing forever?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I know you said that, but do you think that's why is that our job?
Because it's in our best interest. I mean, the Straits of Hormuz are important for our trade, certainly oil, and for Europe, for that matter, too, our allies, Europe. I think that, you know, it would be a big deal if we weren't doing it anymore. Somebody else would probably step up and do it, and it would most likely be Russia or China. And I'm sure they wouldn't want to facilitate trade to the United States of America. You know, so...
Last question for you: boots on the ground in Syria or Iraq?
No, boots on the ground wherever ISIS is, to destroy ISIS, sure. But I don't think
that's a yes.
I mean, it's not for this. It's not in defense of Assad, and it certainly wouldn't be more nation building in Iraq. It would be to annihilate ISIS and leave.
Okay, so I guess we figured out that you're a total neocon.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I mean, Mike would agree with me, though. I mean, airstrikes don't work. They're not working. It's becoming a problem.
Neither do boots on the ground either, though. In the context that we do it now, it doesn't work. It's stupid how we do it.
Yeah, it does. It's not going to work. When you go to war, you go to war to win. And what we're doing is, we'll bomb this area because it's politically expedient to do so. Well, Obama can say, well, you know, I'm doing something about it. I'm not doing anything, but he's really not doing anything. ISIS is growing stronger. They have a stronghold in Yemen, areas of North Africa, all through the Middle East. You know, Iran's getting stronger. I don't know anything that's happening that's in our favor there. I think they're out to kill us. There's members of ISIS in the United States. They're recruiting here. It's not a good thing, man. And the way they treat women and children over there, it's disgusting. At some point, something's going to have to happen.
All right, so here's what I think about that. And I don't think we should have boots on the ground in Iraq. I think we should arm the Kurds. And the reason I say that is because what Will just explained is basically a violation of human rights going on. some sort of it's genocide is what's happening over there, for lack of a better word. I mean, that's what it is.
They're not even that lucky to be killed.
I know, but listen, that happens all over the world. Are we? My problem is when we think that we can intervene in a much deeper problem, like a much bigger problem, and then just walk away from it. For example, there's countless instances in history of human rights violations where we just did nothing about it. And Africa is a great example of that. We did nothing about it to the extent what would require to take down ISIS. So I don't really think that's a good argument for going in. Now, I will say that there does seem that they are coming after us and have done recruiting here. So that, in my mind, is a threat to our nation directly. So for that reason, I support boots on the ground, but they haven't claimed any actual attack on the U.S. They've only said random attacks were ISIS motivated. They never. I mean, I haven't seen anything that said that they have planned out an attack.
What I would say is it's akin to and Mike and I have drawn comparisons to this, and Alan West did this today. It's akin to, in some cases, the interwar period, between the First World War and the Second World War, and it's not allowing ISIS to get a stronghold. It's like what I would call when Hitler marched into the Rhineland, which was specifically against the Treaty of Versailles, that they could not go into the Rhineland to protect their industry because that would be the engine of their war machine. We don't want ISIS to set up and be able to, in essence, set up their Rhineland, or Iran to do either. We have these two conflicting entities in the Middle East. We don't want one of them to get a stronghold and be able to attack us. This is the whole thing. We know they want to. We know that they want to attack us. It's just at what point do we go in there? Do we go in there now, or do we go in there when they get the capabilities of attack? What do you think, Mike?
It's interesting because what we consider going into Iraq or Syria now, I'm totally against all that. It's a complete waste of time and money. You could sell me on destroying ISIS if we were actually going to go in with 300,000 troops.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Everything in sight, but then at the same time, you can't make it sound like this is going to be a quick, easy war, and we're going to be, walk away, wipe our hands in 5 to 10 years. That's not how it's going to work. You have to destroy everything in sight with 300,000 troops,
right.
And then you have to leave. Then you have to leave military bases there for the next half a century. That's just how that works. You can't sell me on these in-between wars. If you want to have another war like Iraq or Afghanistan that we've been having, in the last decade or so, no, I don't want to do that. And I don't think airstrikes are effective either, but I don't think that would help at all. If you're going to commit to a war, then you have to fight a war. That's exactly the only way to do it.
There's only one way to fight a war, and that's to win.
I agree with that. But I just don't think that we have a reason to go to war with ISIS. I mean, there have been countless of times, and like I said, I point to Africa, where there have been human rights violations and these terrible terrorist factions, and we've done nothing about it.
It's not just about human. Moreover, we did do things about Africa. We sent them billions of dollars in the Bush administration to fight AIDS and everything else.
Exactly, and I'm for sending the people who fight ISIS money and assistance.
But it's not direct coordinated oppression and barbarism that's happening in the Middle East.
They cut limbs off like crazy.
To the degree they do. Certainly, there's barbaric things done everywhere. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying to the degree where they're selling women and children into slavery, and they're raping them numerous times a day. It's a little different. And yes, they are recruiting here. I don't know how many people. I think it's been over 100 people in the United States that have been arrested. There was just a couple arrested. That was the gal was the daughter of a cop somewhere in the Midwest. That were arrested for coordinating with ISIS. It is becoming a problem. There's been top officials that have said they're a direct threat to the United States of America. To what degree, I don't know. Like what Mike said, it is heavy costs to go in there to annihilate them. I'm not talking about costs as in money costs. It wouldn't cost us nearly as much as the Iraq and Afghanistan war. I'm talking about public relation costs. I mean, you're going to go in there
human life, and you're going to destroy lives.
You're going to, but that's war, though. You go to war. You got to annihilate them. I mean, this is what we did in Japan. This is what we did in Germany. Germany was destroyed when we were done with their Japan in the same sense.
Well, look, here's the thing about that too, and I think anti-war people even should actually be more for that approach, because when you have that approach to war, that makes the cost of war clear. That means that that means that that should be a last resort because you don't want to do that. It's going to cost money. It's going to cost a lot of lives, destruction of land and property. So you have to have a really good debate about whether it's worth it to go destroy ISIS. And then we can have the debate on whether they're a threat to the United States. But it's so easy to go to war when we have our leaders convincing us that, oh, it's going to be quick, we'll have all these laser-guided bombs, and there'll be minimal casualties. No, war is not like that, and if you're fighting a war like that, you're not going to win it. And we've proven that over and over again in the last half a century. So yeah, war should be like that, and if we commit to that, then we can have the debate whether we actually want to do it and whether something like that is worth going in there. That's the only time that you can really have that debate, though.
But don't you think, and I agree with you totally, but don't you think there's more casualties when you don't have an all-out war? I mean, we're pussyfooting around the Middle East. We literally have people in Iraq and Afghanistan that are treating soldiers and being shot in the back by people because they're worried about when we're going to leave. We're really putting our troops in a situation where we render them relatively powerless and they're very vulnerable. It's either like at this point it's like let's just why are our troops still there? They have no clear mission. And I brought this up with Alan West at Freedom Fest. I said, what is our strategy? Why are we just putting our troops? They're sitting ducks. They have no strategy. We don't know what we're fighting for over there anymore. Why are they still there? It's time to bring them home. If you're not going to fight the war to win, let's bring them home. I mean, that's where I'm at. So I don't know.
But the thing is, I mean, we have fought a war where we had minimal boots on the ground, and we slaughtered the enemy. It was Afghanistan after 9/11. I mean, we brought in the B-52s. I mean, we just absolutely pounded them into submission, and then the allies in the area, what was it called? I forget. The Northern Alliance.
Yeah, the Northern Alliance.
Went and took over and so forth. So, in a sense, that's different because it was a much more rural, or there wasn't as much city and civilians to get killed. But you know, you can do more than we're doing right now without having a full World War II.
No, there is in-betweens, sure. But yeah, to his point on Afghanistan, yeah, Iraq's a lot harder because you have the Shia, the Sunni, and the Kurds. And they've all been fighting each other for the longest time. In Afghanistan, you didn't necessarily have that problem. You had the Taliban, and then you had the Northern Alliance that really resisted the Taliban. And then you had the problem when that guy that was the leader of the Northern Alliance, he got killed. And that was a big problem. Go ahead.
You can't win a war by pounding them into submission from the air. You can temporarily win a war.
Right.
But, you know, even in Afghanistan, the air campaign in Afghanistan was great. But if we would have left it at that, and maybe we should have because it didn't get us any better results for sending ground troops in, but you eventually have to send ground troops in to provide stability to the country. You can pound everybody into submission all you want. The second you stop, they're going to come right back out of hiding.
Right. Well, why can't the ground troops come? Why can't the ground troops come from Saudi Arabia, or Jordan, or Turkey? I mean, they're attacking Turkey directly now. ISIS is. And that's the other problem I was going to mention before, is that if you arm the Kurds, if you arm the Kurds, you're not going to make Turkey happy.
That's the PKK,
a NATO ally.
That's the PKK the Kurds, the Kurdish terrorist organization that's attacking Turkey. They want that part. They want that little area of the Syrian border, I think, and they're the ones that are attacking the Kurds.
I mean, this is the same question you can ask about why the Europeans don't beef up their own security. I don't know why they don't do it. Why don't the Saudis, why don't the Turks go in Afghanistan? I don't know.
Well, Mike, we know why the Germans don't do it.
Yeah, we know why the Germans don't do it, and that's actually part of the problem in Europe, is we have to be the leader in Europe because the Germans, and justifiably so, are skeptical of looking to militarize. But they're the largest economy there, they're the leaders there. So when the Germans aren't taking the lead, who's supposed to take the lead over there? Well, it's got to be us. And yeah, I don't know why some of these other countries in the Middle East aren't more concerned with some of these terrorist organizations. But in the position we're in, the world looks for us to lead the way. And we are the world leaders. We're the strongest military power, the strongest economy. And the world's better off that way with us leading the way. And everybody depends on us to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of it is, too, is our guiding principles. I mean, it is life, liberty, and property, and generally we call them human rights, but I mean individual rights still to a degree. I mean, if you look at it today, even people on the left do fight for a little degree of individual rights, like free speech, to a degree. I mean, I guess they use it and then they twist it. But
free speech as long as I agree with you.
yeah,
That's
true.
what the left says.
True. I mean, but all in all, if you look at it compared to the rest of the world, we do care more about individual rights and human rights. I don't think there's anybody on the left that wants to see people, dragged out of their homes and killed or their property expropriated. Maybe there is some, perhaps the Bernie Sanders crowd, which is what I want to get to, because everybody, and I want to get Grant in on this, is that in L.A., you saw this, right, Kevin? He had like 27,000 people at his rally, and everyone's, oh, this Bernie Sanders. Well, let me tell you something about Los Angeles. They're all socialists here. They're all far-left loon job kooks, and that's exactly who's going to go to these things, and the media is making a big deal out of it. Partly, I think, because they just don't like, I mean, certainly Fox News, because they don't like Hillary Clinton. And they're using it to bash Hillary Clinton, essentially saying, look at how far down she is, but, Bernie Sanders is getting all these people in L.A. But I think it's a load of crap. There's people in between California and New York, and none of them like Bernie Sanders, and some of them are Democrats, too. Go ahead.
Who are you saying go ahead to?
Yeah, who is that?
Grant,
yeah.
on Bernie Sanders.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. He had like 200,000 people. There was a hilarious picture of this woman who was like looking at him as he was God, like reaching out to him and like crying on his Facebook page earlier. And it was just, oh my God, it was sad. It's a scary thought that many people went to that rally.
It's about transformation, he said, but isn't that what Barack Obama was? We didn't transform enough?
We didn't transform enough.
How much further do we have to transform?
We're not in our final stage yet.
I mean, Barack Obama is, for all intents and purposes, a socialist. I mean, he's a Marxist. There's really no way around it.
You saw a lot of this with Ron Paul, though. I mean, Ron Paul had huge crowds at his rallies, and a lot of people were like, hey, look at what Ron Paul gets at his rallies.
Yeah.
Well, this doesn't mean that he's broadly appealing to the electorate. He appeals to that niche. And since he appeals so out of that niche, they turn out in droves to him. But that doesn't mean that he can win a primary with the broad base of the Democratic Party, just like Ron Paul couldn't with the Republican Party.
Yeah, but he's actually leading polls in New Hampshire now. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that Hillary, not that this is a problem, Hillary's falling in the polls, and there's no viable alternative to her. That's of the reason that his numbers are so high.
That's a big difference. Yeah, there was plenty of alternatives to Mitt Romney, although eventually Mitt Romney won, but there's only really one true alternative, at least in the polls right now, to Hillary Clinton, and that's why he's going to have a little bit more staying power, but I still don't think it's realistic.
Isn't it amazing, though, and Mike, we talked about this, that the Democrat Party is a far-left party. You have Jim Webb, who's a sensible guy, and people are running to this loon job kook, Bernie Sanders. You don't hear a word about Jim Webb. I mean, would you, Kevin and Grant, would you agree that the Democrat Party is a far-left party? And they characterize Republicans, who are largely these establishment figures, who to me are Democrats of 30 years ago. They characterize them as this far-right party. It's really the other way around. And these Democrats vote in lockstep. They're a monolithic voting bloc for leftist policies. Grant, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I think they really advocate for a lot of the things that they don't really understand is exactly what they're supposed to be against. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, I see this from Occupy Democrats a lot. They'll say, and we posted about it on We Are Capitalists. They'll say free market fascism. But what they don't realize is that's not even a thing. But let's just ignore that for a second. Fascism, I mean, is in a way is kind of what they support at the end of the day. Like Bernie Sanders, that would be pure fascism.
The fascist.
And and yet here they are trying to be against it, and it's just like that has got to be the most annoying thing about it is they are what they supposedly hate,
Right, Kevin.
But
would you agree?
They don't know that.
Yeah, of course they have no idea. Oh, they have
no idea. The reason that Sanders, in my opinion, is getting so much support is because he's in the view of Democrats, he's the most Democrat. You can't get any further Democrat in their minds. I mean, and it is true because Democrats have always been, a certain amount of socialism in the Democratic Party, and people in the Democratic Party that get criticized do so because they're not left enough. They're not liberal enough. Clinton, people hate Clinton because she's seen as cronyist, but she's also seen as not liberal enough. You can't say that about Sanders. Sanders is the pure Democrat, and I think that's why you see people fawning over him. You saw that a little bit for Obama, but he did a little bit less. I don't think people knew his policies as much as they know Sanders. They know what Sanders' policies are, and they're still fawning over him. The woman at the rally who looked at him like he was Jesus. I mean, to them he is, because he's the purest liberal they can find. So if he becomes president, it'll be their greatest achievement, essentially.
And what is really scary? I see a lot of people now, like I've just talked with on the internet, who say Bernie is the answer. Or like, what other answer do you have? You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be this guy who's just gonna come in and save the world from everybody,
But if Bernie's the answer,
that was Obama.
If Bernie's the answer, doesn't that mean that Obama's been the problem that we need the solution to?
Yes.
Well, to be fair, Bernie Sanders has been really critical of Obama, which I mean, is deserved. If you're a liberal, a pure liberal, as Kevin alluded to, like Bernie Sanders, then you should be critical of Obama. Right. That's kind of the thing that's gotten lost on Democrats. They're kind of a team. It's like they play a team sport. Oh, Obama's on our team, so we can't criticize him. If I was a Democrat, I would have hated the last 6 years or so of Obama. So to Bernie Sanders' credit, he's definitely been critical of that, and it takes admitting that Obama was wrong to admit that Bernie Sanders is right.
Okay, I don't know. I think the Democrat Party is a party that gets things done. Since 2010 they had a Republican-controlled House, and since 2014 they had a Republican-controlled Senate. They got Obamacare passed. They have got countless other measures passed. Spending's been through the roof. The Republicans have done nothing to control spending. They didn't do anything to control spending under Bush either. But I mean, it's just government has ballooned. The EPA, the IRS, they have done nothing to rein these organizations in. The SEC, they've done nothing. You guys saw that. I think I talked about it on the last show. The SEC voted to tether CEO pay to their medium employees' pay. I mean, this is insane. Congress didn't vote on that. That didn't come from any of the people. It came from the executive branch. How do they vote and make laws? I don't see Congress doing anything about it. The Democrat Party is a successful leftist party, and I don't know if Bernie Sanders would be able to improve on it. I think Obama's done a hell of a job, and he would have done better if he had, again, for the last, what is it now? What are we in? For the last 5 years, if he had also a Democrat Congress. You know what I mean? They're a successful party. That you can't deny. I don't know how much more successful Bernie Sanders is going to be. Try getting a 90% income tax. It's not going to happen.
It's interesting to me that from after 2 years after Obama got elected, Republicans have had control of the House, and then, of course, a couple of years ago they gained control of the Senate. So obviously, according to the electorate, what Democrats have done overall isn't that popular. But at the same time, and Ted Cruz alluded to this during the debate, what have Republicans done to stop it? They haven't done anything, even though they've had more control in the last, especially the last year and a half, but even the last 4 years, they've had more control, and they haven't been able to do anything to stop it. And
right.
Ted Cruz is right. We keep electing Republicans, but Republicans aren't as successful as Democrats. They don't hold up to their word.
Right. I mean, he said it best. The Mitch McConnell Senate is no different than the Harry Reid Senate. I mean, he's right.
He's right.
But I mean, let's be honest. So there's really at this point in time, there's no really difference between Democrats and Republicans in a lot of ways. Like, in a lot of ways, they're just the same damn party. That's what I mean. Like, it's not like, I don't really think it's necessarily that Republicans aren't getting things done. It's that they're just the same damn party.
It's at one point they don't want to change it. They just want to run it.
They just mesh together, and they realize that they can all be better off as a political class if they just mesh together and just do whatever whoever's in power wants to do, and screw everybody else.
They're a ruling class, and they're in there for 30 years. And they all work together. It's called universalism in Congress. It's like, look, I'll get my money, you get yours. We won't say anything about each other.
Just vote when the raise bill comes around.
Yeah. I mean, it's nonsense. But I want to move on. I want to get to something that you guys might be interested in, everyone else is. Jon Stewart's leaving the Daily Show. We're all upset here at Unbiased America. We'd like to salute you, Jon Stewart, for doing an excellent job. What was the statistic you brought up before the show, Kevin, about Jon Stewart and the other guy that copies Bill O'Reilly? What the hell is the French guy?
Colbert.
Yeah, Colbert. What's the stat on that?
Okay, this is if I recall correctly, but something like 60% of millennials say that the most trusted source of news is Colbert and Stewart.
And then let me ask you this, wasn't Jon Stewart meeting with Obama or having private meetings with him over the phone about messaging?
Yeah, and he's been, who's the guy on Fox News who's the media critic, Kurtz, I think his name is.
Yeah, Howard Kurtz.
Has been having a back and forth, right. It's great, I love that guy. He's been having a back and forth with Stewart about this notion that Stewart is a total crony with Obama. And Stewart's taken it really seriously, but, in a way that he tries to mock, in a mocking tone and so forth. And, the truth is, if you meet with Obama and you're supposedly the most trusted name in news, how does that match? I mean, really, how do you equate trust to a private meeting with Obama? I mean,
that's
obviously,
Joseph Goebbels was a trusted
Obama
source.
line.
Goebbels was a trusted source in Germany. He met with Hitler all the time, so I'm not equating the same thing.
Get back to Nazis.
I mean, come on. It's like, here's this guy meeting with the president. He's a trusted leader. You got to be kidding me. And moreover, I don't know what this guy has. I mean, I remember I posted on my page. What does this guy know about constitutional law, liberty, or economics? And it's funny because Steve Horwitz commented on it. I know for sure he took an economics intro class at William and Mary. You know what I mean? I got a kick out of that. It's like, oh, that's good.
On Kevin's stats about millennials getting news from them, to me, that's pretty sad. Like, you have to realize that's not necessarily. They don't even care what's really going on, is what that says. Like, It's not like they're saying HuffPo or Salon or Drudge or Breitbart. I mean, they're going to what is essentially the most mindless source of information that you can possibly get. Like, I know we probably all go above the average voter, average citizen's, knowledge on these issues, but these kids are going to the bottom of the barrel.
But Grant, do you think those same people that they're just fed up? They like to see people being mocked because they're fed up with D.C. They're fed up with politicians. They want to see them mocked, and these are the same people that are attached to Bernie Sanders and to a degree Donald Trump.
I was just gonna say I agree with you, and all of them are gonna go out and vote for Bernie Sanders. All of them. Not 50-50. All of them are going to vote for Bernie Sanders.
I met Marco Rubio at the luncheon yesterday, and I mean, somebody asked him. Of course, somebody had to ask him about Donald Trump. I mean, he literally took 6 or 7 questions, and one person had to go, well, with Donald Trump, I just, I put my head in my hand. But he goes, he was right, and he said Trump has tapped into this vein that people are pissed off with D.C. You know what I mean? And I need to try to get those voters. So Kevin, do you think Rand's making a big tactical mistake by attacking Donald Trump? And his supporters are going to take it as like, now we see Donald as more of an outsider than even Rand Paul was, rather than maintaining that degree of being an outsider. What do you?
I think Rand took a gamble in the debate, and I think he lost. I mean, I think he made a name for himself, a little bit more of a name for himself, but I don't necessarily think he made it in a positive way, because if you look at the one poll I've seen that was taken after the debate showed that he actually lost a couple points, and he was right on the cusp of actually being in the top 10. So if he lost a couple points, he's going to be down. He's not even going to make the next debate. That said, he didn't have much of a choice. I don't think he did it right. I mean, he went after Trump, and Trump just shot him down, basically. Trump brushed him away. Trump has free reign to say and do whatever he wants among his constituents or the people that support him. He can be vulgar to Megyn Kelly. He can say whatever he wants to anybody, and it makes them like him better. Here's the thing, though. There's only a very small portion of people that really like that. And the fact that his support, he's leading, but he's only at like 25%, that means 75% of the vote is divided amongst everyone else. Once that starts to once people start dropping out, he's going to have to. It's going to be Trump versus somebody else, and that the vote won't be divided amongst everybody else. That 75% is probably going to coalesce around somebody that's not named Donald Trump, because I don't think his favorables are way down there.
Right, Mike. I'm going to ask you this one, and this builds off of Kevin's point. I mean, everybody's bashing Donald Trump. He's not my candidate, Donald Trump, but it's more of an issue thing. You can't trust the guy. I don't know where he is. He's been all over the map on every issue. But the thing about him is and Kevin's right. He can say whatever he wants. But when somebody, we're all tired of politics as usual. We're all tired of politicians giving us slogans, never answering the questions. And then when Donald Trump is the opposite of politics as usual, and he's out there and he's answering these questions, he's going after people that go after him. We have a problem with that too. What the hell do we want here? You know what I mean? What we want, a refined politician that does everything correctly, and will attack people at just the way we want them to. In a manner that that's political but not political. I'm lost as to what we want.
Well, I think a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people like Donald Trump because he says they like that. He's unfiltered. He doesn't sound like a politician. He breaks that mold. He says what he wants to say, and he doesn't care what you think about it. And yeah, people like that. But there's a line that you have to walk between being like that and just not knowing what you're talking about. Like going after people personally. That he goes after Megyn Kelly personally. He goes after Rand Paul. Says he's spoiled. His family's spoiled. He talks about Megyn Kelly being on the rag. I mean, there's a balance here. Yeah, I get why people like that, and I would not mind someone more like Donald Trump that actually knew what they were talking about on the issues. Like, you can be brash on the issues. He doesn't even talk about the issues. He just talks about everybody that's critical of him. Right. What has he said anything about anything that matters? When has he brought up his foreign policy or what his economic policy is going to be? He doesn't even talk about that. I'm going
to be devil's advocate here for a second, and you guys can handle this one. I mean, he is attacking Megyn Kelly personally, but Megyn Kelly asked him questions about what he said about other people completely out of context. And if you look at the context, he was saying these things, and they had innocuous meanings. So they went through, like his old audio clips from The Apprentice, which is a TV show here, and they went after the guy on a personal level. And there's so many things you could go after this guy on the issues. You can go after him on why are you flipping on Obamacare? What would be your economic policy? Are you free market? Are you what are you doing? Rather than asking him that question. So I think people see that, they go, yep, he went right back after Megyn Kelly. It's tit for tat, and he's not here. He's not going to sit around and take that from these journalists. Kevin, you're shaking your head.
No,
go ahead.
No, you're wrong. If you actually watch that every candidate and the questions they got, Megyn Kelly and the Fox people went after every one of them. It was brutal. I mean, every single candidate got a question that was basically addressing their weakness or a controversy or something bad that's happened to them. He was the only one that struck back. I mean, obviously the question against him was probably the most pointed, but everybody got tough questions, and I just think he's the only one who really struck back in a tone that his viewers, his supporters loved, but he turned off a lot of people too.
But do you think that was just a tough question or an unfair question? I mean, again, a lot of those things were out of context that she asked. The on the knees thing was the thing with that Omarosa gal. And he liked that she was on her knees because she had to beg for something from another participant. I don't know how the show works. I've never seen it, but she had to beg for another participant for him to do some deed that she needed him to do. And he said, "Man, it's good to see her on her knees in that context, not in a sexual context." So it was that in itself was unfair. You know what I mean? As opposed to tough. Kevin, do you want to answer that?
Well, yeah, no, I agree to a certain extent that Megyn Kelly went overboard, but I could give you 100 more quotes from Trump that were sexist and that were demeaning to women, and maybe she didn't ask the question right. I mean, maybe she should have rephrased it and used better examples, because I could give you plenty of them.
Right. I mean, Rand Paul did shush a lady journalist one time too. I mean, that is very sexist. He should go ahead, Mike.
Well, here's the thing too, Will. People love Trump because he goes after these people, and he's very critical of the media and people like that, because a lot of people are fed up with the media. But the way Trump could have handled that better and still been his brash self is to say, this is what's the problem with journalism. Yeah. You're asking me questions about Celebrity Apprentice. Why aren't you asking me some actual questions that matter? No, He went after Megyn Kelly personally. He could have been his brash self and critical of the media in a context that actually matters.
I totally agree. Yeah. Mature. He's just the most unrefined. He's just the most unrefined, non-political guy you could ever get to stand on that stage. He would never even think of that. His first reaction is that primitive, "The hell are you talking about? Who are you?" You know what I mean? He's just that would be too good for him, Mike. I'm not putting him down. I'm not. It's just that he doesn't think that way. Go ahead, Grant.
Oh, well, I was going to say that really in the whole debate, and I'm not really defending Donald Trump here, but he gets too much attention about this, that no one really got asked any tough questions. They were all kind of like floozy questions.
I agree.
Everyone pretty much gave floozy answers, including Rand Paul, and it really reinforced my belief that American politics has just turned into like a fortune cookie. You know, there's just vague statements that mean absolutely nothing and could apply to anything and make you feel good.
To Fox's credit, it is hard to do a debate with 10 people on a damn stage.
They should definitely have broken that down into like 3 debates, maybe
right.
even.
I agree. Yeah.
Just because there's so many candidates in the field. But Donald Trump's policies, I mean, he's pretty clear, guys. We're losing to Mexico and we're losing to China.
I'm not entirely sure what he means, but
I don't know what he means by that either. I'm pretty glad that I live here and not in China.
But look, Kevin, juxtapose the 2 debates, the happy hour debate, which I thought was an excellent debate. I learned things in that debate, as opposed to the later debate where I thought it got kind of muddled. It was hard to get. Like I felt that Cruz didn't get enough time to give whatever his thoughts on things. I didn't think Rand Paul got enough time at all. I don't know if that's why he was trying to butt in, but I mean, Marco Rubio got enough time to do his typical sloganeering, this new American century, over and over and over. We get it, all right? You're young, the new American century. Enough. I didn't learn as much from as I did in the first debate.
Well, there's a good reason for that. 3 reasons, really. Number one, it was in prime. The second debate was in prime time, so they had to sort of cater to that Fox primetime audience, which likes to hear. The controversy likes to hear. What's that?
I said good point.
Yeah, and I mean, so prime time is different. Thanks. But when it's on at 5 o'clock, you can basically cover tough issues. You can cover economics. You can cover, the issues in a more substantive way. The other 2 points that I want to make was there was no audience in the first one, so there was no who and ahs and all that stuff that happened. I mean, every time Trump made some, remark that was bad, they pan into the audience and there'd be people like going, oh my God, I mean, there was none of that. So there was no real pandering to the audience and trying to get people to scream and laugh. And the third point is just Donald Trump wasn't there in the 5 o'clock. And he got twice as much airtime as the next person, if I recall correctly. He talked for twice as much as the next person in the debate. That didn't happen in the first in the 5 o'clock happy hour debate. They had more even time to talk, and therefore it was more focused on substantive issues.
That's good points. Very good points. Mike, I forgot what the heck I was going to say, which is pretty standard for me. Yeah. But I mean, we can go on all day about Trump, but I think we should move topics. But I mean, the first debate. Would you agree with my assessment that the first debate was better than the second debate? I think Kevin summed it up pretty well, but I think we all learned more from the first debate than really the second debate. And why do you think in the second debate Ted Cruz got the largest bump? I mean, he got 7 points in some polls.
I agree that the first debate, when it comes to talking about the issues, was better for a serious reason. The second debate was probably more entertaining. You had the exchange between Christie and Paul. Obviously you had Trump up there saying all the things that Donald Trump says. But when it comes to the issues, the first debate was more informative and better. And the reasons, I think Kevin hit the nail on the head, that those are probably the exact reasons the first debate was better. Why Cruz got the bump he did, that was interesting because I didn't think he had enough time to talk. So after the debate was over, I was like, well, wow, Cruz didn't really get much time. Not that he ever stood out as having a bad debate, but I didn't think he would get a bump. So it was really interesting to me that he really impressed people when he did get his shot, and that was really interesting.
Yeah, Grant, what do you think? I mean, you looking at it as a sheer libertarian. I see Cruz as a libertarian conservative, and insofar as he's just a constitutional conservative. There's rarely things that he does that he'll do that will offend the Constitution. Why would you think he would get such a big bump? We all know Carly Fiorina got a big bump. Everybody was all Carly. We get it. But why did Cruz get such a big bump in that second debate when there was no clear winner?
I think he was pretty cool, calm, and collected the whole time. You know, like he never really got into a situation where he lost it. Like he never really got into a rife with anybody. There was no like Chris Christie, Rand Paul moment with Ted Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was really maintained to he stuck to his principles. He flew high, but he didn't. You know, it wasn't rocky or anything like that. But he did a great job. He's always been like a number 2 for me. I'm him and Scott Walker I like a lot. And Carly Fiorina I mean, she's interesting. I guess if I got to pick out of the rest of the lot, I'd give her one.
Right. Kevin, why do you think Cruz got such a big bump? I mean, you love to analyze this stuff.
I think I know why. I think he presented himself, or he was seen as a viable alternative to Donald Trump. I mean, the way he phrased the issue, he's mentioned the Washington cartel over and over. He talked about, he really framed it as an issue that with cronyism in Washington, which is what Trump's been talking a lot about. Of course, Trump is part of the problem, frankly. He is one of the cronies, but he didn't do it in a brash way like Trump did. So I think he got a lot of eyeballs this time who said, you know what, he's making the same points that Trump's making. He also said that the Washington cartel wants amnesty, but I've never supported it.
Right.
Which is essentially Trump's whole campaign to this point, is that don't let Mexicans into the in. So he took a lot of Trump's material and he presented it in a way that was more refined, and definitely he's a good speaker too. I mean, like you talk about like Alan West, he answered the questions. There wasn't a stutter, there wasn't an there was none of that. Mm-hmm. So he looked like a less crazy version of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, they played off of each other at one point. And I mean, Cruz's most shrewd move was to not bash Trump, because he understands that those people that are disaffected and ticked off are a lot of people that are going to support him later on down the road. So he doesn't want to bash Trump supporters and alienate them. And I think that's where Rand Paul went wrong, is to come out and go after Trump. And I don't know why you're so threatened by Trump. It's where I don't know how far out from the election. You really shouldn't be threatened at this point. You should maybe wait a little longer and see how far Trump even goes, which we'll see how far he goes. I don't know if you guys remember in 2012 you had a lot of the conservative base really didn't go all in until later, and then it was first, I think it was they went down the line, all these people that dropped out. First it was Newt Gingrich, then he had to drop out, then they went to Herman Cain, and they went on down the line, and then finally when Mitt Romney won the nomination, they didn't want anything to do with him, and Mitt Romney got less votes than McCain did in 2008. But I don't know. This stuff it's just too early to really. How many debates?
I think it was a bad political move for Rand Paul to go after Donald Trump.
Exactly.
I agree with you on that. That was a bad idea. Because now he just like even as his supporter, I was kind of like, come on, it's a little early for the mudslinging. Like just ignore the guy. Like, he's a circus act.
Wait a little while. You looked a little desperate.
Don't start that fight because he can't win it. To be honest, with Trump, I mean, he's just that much of a personality that.
Right. I like that he was fired up, though, Rand. I mean, and he looks like an outsider there, and he feels like one. You know what I mean? You could tell he feels like these guys. I'm not. But I don't understand why he would support.
Did you see that picture of him and when everyone's standing in an elevator going up to the debates, and all of them are sitting around laughing, and Rand Paul's like standing in the corner?
Yeah, I like that he gets fired up. I do.
Yeah. I do too.
You just have to understand that there's a perception. I mean, Carly Fiorina did a good job. She could have smiled a little bit. I mean, Rick Perry mentioned her in a good light, and they cut to her, and she's just.
Well, didn't he say she'd make a great vice president?
Secretary of Treasury.
Yeah, I think he said. I think he said I would rather have Carly negotiate the nuclear deal, and instead of just giving him a smile, she's just. You know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of demeaning, and actually the press picked up on that. They read it in a demeaning way. Yeah. In other words, he meant, you're not going to be a president because you're a woman.
I don't know.
But you'll make a great Secretary of State.
Yeah, I know. You can't rib a woman now. You know what I mean? Equality.
No, you can't.
Equality. But if you look at Carly Fiorina's positions and Trump's positions on the economy, they're relatively similar. I mean, Carly Fiorina is no free market champion here, so let's not. Everyone's so quick to coronate her. I see all these libertarians speaking so highly of Carly Fiorina. She's not. I mean, she's borderline anti-market as far as I'm concerned. So I have a huge problem with that. I mean, I like Cruz and Rand because they're very pro-market and they're very pro-Constitution. I don't hear Trump mention the Constitution. I don't hear these other guys mention the Constitution very much. So that's why I like them, and I don't think that they had an opportunity, Cruz or Rand, to really discuss the Constitution. No question even went near it. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I think it's more catered to that. They're trying to get that 24 million people to watch rather than anybody who really cares about the rule of law or the free market economics. Would any of you guys agree with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Rand made it a discussion about the Constitution when he got in the dust-up with Christie, but they never specifically brought it up, and Cruz never had a chance to talk about it. And that's Cruz's big issue, too.
Right.
Cruz is constitutional man. That's what he's all about. And they never asked him about any constitutional issues, any law issues. And that's Cruz's whole background. Rand had to kind of interject it into the discussion.
Right.
But other than that, it never came up.
Rand is strong on the... Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right about Cruz. I mean, the guy's a brilliant constitutional lawyer, but Rand is great on the Constitution, too. Yeah, he interjected at the Bill of Rights. I mean, Chris Christie, I guess he did okay. Do you think Chris Christie did okay? Anyone else?
No. No.
I mean, just get obviously, we all hate Chris Christie. Kevin, you're the most unbiased here. I think he did okay. I hate the guy. I hate him. I don't think he killed himself though. Go ahead.
Well, the problem that Christie's having is usually he's the most antagonizing guy in the room, and when you've got, he wasn't. Of course, Trump wasn't in that debate, but Trump is the cloud of Trump is hanging over Christie as the outspoken, brash Republican, because and he's also been more subdued. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but other than this moment with Christie, I mean with Paul, he's been more subdued than the usual Christie, and I think that's going to hurt him insofar as he's down in the polls. He's got to make a name for himself. Maybe he should take a stab at the Trump supporters at least. Insofar as talking his mind, yelling at Megyn Kelly, being an asshole. Maybe he should be that kind of person.
He looked a little scared on that bigger stage. He looked a little nervous on the bigger stage.
The HGTV did terrible things to his spray tan. That's all I'll say.
Oh wait, that's right. Was he in the big debate?
Yeah, he was.
Christie. Okay, I forgot about that. But yeah, okay. So he had Trump on stage with him. How are you going to compete with that?
He put the big in the big debate. Oh, snap! Come on, that was funny, Kevin.
God, you're an idiot.
That was pretty good, right, Mike? Mike, wasn't it? All right, anyway.
We'll edit that out later.
Keep going, Will. Good try.
Oh, thanks, guys. We usually do a meme debunking segment, but we're not doing that today. We'll get to that next week. I know I put a thread on Unbiased America. We'll get to it next week. We're too busy today with our Alan West thing. But we'll do the winners and losers, and I hope everybody brought some winners and losers with them. Or you can think of one. You can think of some winners and losers quickly. I know Mike can't do that. That's thinking too quickly. All right, Grant. Who are your winners and losers of the week, and why?
Well, my loser is going to be Bernie Sanders. Actually, no, my loser is Bernie Sanders voters, because it has become clear to me that you people seek no desire for education in economics. You just only want things to be the way that you feel they should be, and it's just the people that show up for these things. It's shocking. But anyways, my other loser, because I hate the state, so I'm going to do two losers, is the EPA. They spilled gold waste or whatever it was all over that river and ruined everything. I'm sure they will get a big budget boost next year to make sure this never happens again.
Well, come on, Grant. They didn't have enough money. That's why this happened.
It's Republican training. It's actually Republican budget cuts. All right?
Yes.
That is sequester.
The sequester, yeah.
Austerity.
And government failure is always rewarded.
We're laughing at this. This is going to happen soon. I'm surprised it hasn't already.
I've already seen liberal pages making these claims.
Yes, all right. So we're laughing, we're giggling. It'll happen.
It has already happened, yep. And that's it. I only have losers. Oh, my winners are the NFL because it's football season now. There you go.
All right, Kevin. I know you'll have more articulate winners and losers because you're over 65.
The winner is not the loser, Grant. The winner is Sanders. He just totally took off this week. I mean, if not in the real polls, then at least in the perception that's being portrayed by the media. Suddenly he is the front runner. Suddenly you see him in those stadiums that used to be reserved for Obama, and suddenly he's the new Obama. And I mean, the media has started this narrative, and watch, they're going to run with it. He is going to get the nomination, I think.
I hate you. I hate you.
I'd be worried about the guy. I would be worried about. Do I think he's going to get the nomination? No, but I'd be worried about him. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The Democrats are a far left party.
I say this over and over again. A populist is eventually going to get elected because we've entered the idiocracy phase of American politics right now, where this, you just pander to the voters by saying the stupidest things possible. The loser of the week is Clinton. Because she is, I mean, she's on the losing end of this, and then the story today where she actually had to hand over her servers. She's claiming it was voluntary. No, it was not voluntary. The FBI might actually be going after her. And the interesting question is, Obama really holds the reins of government and the FBI and so forth. Is he the one really going after Clinton now?
Well, he really went after Lois
Sanders
Lerner.
Supporter.
He really went after Lois Lerner and her emails. I think he'll go after Clinton with the same vigor.
Well, he doesn't. But there's a competition now. Clinton, which he never really liked Clinton, versus Sanders, and I think he's maybe going to undercut her.
You really think so?
Maybe that's what's happening. No, that's like that could possibly happen. But the fact that the FBI is now asking for information and having a criminal probe of Clinton is very suspect. I think that might have Obama's fingerprints on it.
You've been wearing a tinfoil hat for too long.
No, come on.
that hair dye comes with tinfoil, and you're just going at it.
All right, Mike. You're the long-awaited winners and losers.
Well, I'm going to go both from the debate because I think the loser and the winner are connected together. And my loser this week is Rand Paul. Unfortunately, and don't get me wrong, I love Rand Paul, but Rand Paul
hate mail.
His campaign has been struggling, and he came out this week, and as Kevin said earlier, he took a gamble, but it didn't come off well. He didn't perform that well into the debate, maybe till the end, interjecting and attacking Trump. Some of the more he's already got a reputation as interrupting people, whether that's deserved or not, and he didn't help himself there. And then, so I don't think he had a strong debate performance, and I know he was taking a gamble because he's trying to re-energize his campaign, and I appreciate that, but it didn't come off well, and it's not. He's going to have to try something else now, and going after Trump's not going to be it. My winner is Ted Cruz, and because for two reasons. He had the uptick in the polls from his debate performance, and I thought he did well. Like we discussed, I didn't know he did that well, but Ted Cruz is an outsider to a lot of people, and he's going to not only be the alternative outsider to Trump now, he's going to take a lot of the Rand people when Rand's struggling. So he's going to be the primary outsider-type candidate, anti-establishment type candidate, because Rand Paul's struggling, and it's ultimately not going to be Trump. So now Cruz, he's getting this bump in the polls. He's still an anti-establishment candidate. Cruz benefits the most from all of this week, so he's my winner this week.
So Cruz versus Sanders.
That'd be a good election.
Yeah. Who comes out on top in that?
Sanders.
Oh, that's a tough call, but I think you're right. I think Sanders has this, he's a populist. And
Ted Cruz is easy to mudslide.
I think you're crazy. I think if a Sanders ran against a conservative like a Rand Paul or a Ted Cruz, he'd get clobbered.
Rand Paul wouldn't beat him either.
Yeah, he would. Trust me, they would.
I think Rand Paul would have a better chance.
You got to beat him in the
nomination. Would have a better chance.
You got to beat him in the nomination.
This country's still far more conservative than it is liberal. The problem is conservatives are never turning out for these mushy, moderate candidates. They just don't want to vote for them. I mean, I'm sure you know a lot of libertarians. I know libertarians that don't want to go out and vote for a Mitt Romney or a John McCain. I know I don't. I don't want to vote for. I mean, I will. Because I have no other choice, but it's not something I'd be totally galvanized about. I'm not going to say, man, I can't wait to go vote for Bush.
But
No,
they might vote against Sanders. They might actually be galvanized. I've actually heard people
I would
say,
do that.
Yeah, I've heard people say who don't normally vote that
I would
they
do
would
that.
vote against Sanders.
No,
and not only that, Ted Cruz does have the ability. He's an eloquent speaker. He has the ability to energize people and make it a very enthusiastic campaign. He can get people pumped up. Mitt Romney can't get people pumped up, but Ted Cruz can.
And I mean, he's been. So when was he elected? Was it 2012? I can't remember. Oh no, it was 2010. He was elected.
2012.
Was it 2012?
No,
The Tea Party election, right?
No,
That
it
was
was 2012.
Yeah, so but he was elected in 2012. I mean, he's had a couple of years. He's been very outspoken, and he's had very few slip-ups. I mean, for a guy that speaks so much and toes the line, he really doesn't slip up much. With his rhetoric, saying anything that's completely loony. And look, and I think the perception of people, certainly when he declared, and among libertarians, is that this guy's a kook. He's this conservative, religious kook. That I got that message from a lot of libertarians and a lot of liberals and like even mainstream Republicans. Oh, I've heard Republican people go, Cruz, he's too radical for me. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, if Cruz is a radical, then I'm too radical for you too. Madison's too radical, and that Jefferson's a radical. So I don't think people really got a good perception of him. They just heard in the media when he had that government shutdown in 2013, when he shut down the government and everybody was calling him. I think it was McCain called him a cuckoo bird or something. Because everybody listens to what McCain says, they just don't vote for him. But my winners and losers of the week are obviously Carly Fiorina's got to be a big winner. I mean, her and Ted Cruz. Carly Fiorina a big winner because you could tell she was a winner. She won that first debate. She was a big winner of the day. She stood out. And then she had that interview with Chris Matthews, and she went after him. And she's been doing great in the media ever since. And Ted Cruz, because he took such a huge jump. Those are definitely two winners. My loser was going to be the EPA, but Grant stole that from me. But I think my loser is just going to be government in general because it's horrible at everything. And I mean, here they are overseeing private businesses, which imagine a private business did that. That would be the end of the business. Not because of the EPA regulators or government, but because people would be so pissed they wouldn't patronize that business anymore. So
British Petroleum, BP did that.
Yeah, but I mean,
they had a...
BP was more of like, okay, it's the cost of doing business that it broke. The thing broke off. There was a fire. I don't think people saw that as BP obviously intentionally wanting to waste billions and billions of dollars of profit. But if a business went out there and was so like irresponsible enough for that to happen, I think people rightfully so would not patronize the business. And I think the same thing happened with BP. I think a lot of people moved away from BP after that spill. They took a huge hit.
There was a lot of pushback, and still is against BP. They didn't die, but they're a huge company, so.
Right, and there's just no way that BP would want that to happen. It was deep water drilling, and it was a mistake that happens. And you have oil released. There's oil released into the ocean every day, billions of gallons of oil. So it's not nearly as bad as these chemicals used to mine precious metals or whatever it is used. It really contaminates that water. It's really unnatural. I mean, you know what I mean? So. And that's going to last. I heard some estimates say that it's not going to be clean until next spring. It'll eventually, obviously, settle and everything will come back to normal, but I mean, it's going to take a long time. And also government, because of the water problem in California, is totally a failure of government again. But you'll never
hear the black balls?
Yeah, I did.
Did you see the black balls that rolled into the reservoir?
This is insane. These people are just, oh my, comes back to the basic problem of they just don't understand the most efficient way to allocate resources is a free market via prices. It's very simple. Bernie Sanders, not a clue. Most of the establishment Republican Party, not a clue. I don't get it. But anything else you guys want to add before we go? Grant, you came out with something today on We Are Capitalists. It was on debunking Hillary Clinton's $350 billion scheme for free college.
Tax the rich. That's how we get free stuff.
We shouldn't have to worry about costs, she said. Again, not understanding how resources are allocated. I guess
we're just going to take a little bit from them. We're just going to tax their health benefits just a little bit,
But that was a populist move. I mean, I think
she was trying to get back in line with Bernie Sanders.
Right.
You notice the timing? It was like right as his big LA stuff was going on.
Isn't that scary though? It's like, let's see who could top one another with free stuff. I mean, that,
let's bribe our way into the Oval Office.
I mean,
But it's always been that way. Even the Republicans do that. You know, Medicare. What was Medicare Part D? Or
that was
I mean,
just atrocious. Oh my God, these Bushes, man. I am so sick of the. Please, no more Bushes. Please, and that
yeah. How come we didn't say loser of the week Bush? He got destroyed. He's not even in the upper tier anymore.
Dude, I thought he was a good speaker. That guy is a deer in headlights up on that stage, man.
Yeah, he is.
My name is. Wait, what did he say? In Florida, they call me Jeb because I earned it.
Yeah. What a tool.
Maybe because your mother gave you that name, you halfwit. I could have done better than him.
Yeah, Will, that is one person you're actually funnier than.
Yeah,
Jeb
thanks.
Bush.
Actually, that's a
Actually, than Jeb Bush.
That's a good compliment. Shut up, Kevin. Anyway, this week I'm actually going to do, with Kevin's help, I'm going to come out, and I wanted to ask you guys, I'll ask you on air, I'm going to come out and I'm going to rate... Yeah, this week coming up, I'm going to rate...
The closet?
Oh, and I hate you.
That's what it sounded like. With the help of Kevin? What?
No, I'm going to enlist your help. But right now, I want to come out with I want to do each candidate, Democrat and Republican, and rate them based on market principles that we know to be empirical. Because, but other than that, it's like, how would you do that in an unbiased manner? Is to, you know what I mean, with certain political rhetoric. Like, let's say we wanted to rate Rubio. How could we do it? How could we rate him in an unbiased manner? Does that make sense?
Voting record.
Statements that he said in the past.
Right, no, certainly statements, but like to what degree do we say pro and con? Like if we're going to make it's a pro and this is a con, in what context do we do it in to be unbiased?
Well, unbiased means, frankly, you have to support your position in a way that you're right. You know, it means that you have to really go the extra yard to actually come up with a statement that's correct. And if you are correct, you're unbiased. If you're not correct and you still support the statement, like if somebody supports something that they know is false, that's complete bias. That's the way I look at bias, frankly.
But let's say if I'm rating a Democrat candidate, if I'm rating Bernie Sanders, I mean, I'm going to look at his economic platform and it's all going to be wrong. I mean, you know, it's going to be empirically incorrect. So
right, that makes you unbiased.
I know, but at the same time, you know, on the page, that's all we get. What you post one thing, unbiased. You're not unbiased. I post a thing about FDR talking about states' rights, and then 3 years later, just eviscerating states' rights, and we're biased. So it's like you can't ever win here. You know.
But they're also they're confusing. Well, there's different ways to look at the word unbiased, but they're also confusing nonpartisan, centrist, independent,
right.
You know, or not opinionated. Those things don't mean unbiased.
So yeah, I like Mike's idea too. You said like, what did you say? There's statements.
Voting record.
Yeah, voting record. Like, what kind of voting record do they have, and their statements, and how it would appeal to pros and cons. You could do pros and cons for conservatives, for the Republican, the GOP candidates, and then you could do pros and cons for the Democrat candidates. I think that would be the best way to do it. And then I could put it on, you could meme it so people could share it and see it really pretty quickly and put the biggest parts, obviously, because people aren't going to go read the whole entire thing. But I think that would be fun to rate them and look up their statements and source it. I think the followers would really like that. I think they're really getting into. I mean, you're older than obviously life, the Earth itself, Kevin. But do you remember this many people getting into a primary process?
Well, back during Hoover's last election, it was close. And I was a Hoover man, but yeah. No, I don't. I think, but to a certain extent, I think Trump is helping Republicans get visibility. 24 million. That was the biggest cable, the cable program ever.
I know.
24 million people watching.
Yeah, non-sporting cable program ever. Mike, are you back at Being Liberal Logic? Are you posting again? For God's sake.
Yeah, we're starting up, man. I just got moved, so everything's back to normal again. So it's going to be all started up.
How's your reach?
We'll see. We'll see.
All right. And also, we have the Unbiased America website. It's preliminarily up. There's just my stuff on it. No one else has put anything on it yet. But
yeah, I guess.
I'm going to actually post the Alan West interview on there so you guys can watch it and you can give us their feedback right on the blog, or you can obviously do the feed. I check the YouTube videos once in a while for comments to give feedback there. And if you want to give Grant some fashion advice, please feel free to do so. You can contact him at the Modern Libertarian. And if you want to donate money to his wardrobe so he could perhaps buy a real shirt, you can also do that too.
Yeah, stop living in a cardboard box.
Yeah, no, well, at least my cardboard box is under a bridge. Where's yours? Anyway, anyway, you guys want to add anything else? I mean, we kind of had an ad-lib show here today. I didn't prepare and I passed out. Sorry about that. Anyone? No?
Yeah.
All right. Well, for Grant Phillips, the Modern Libertarian, and We Are Capitalists, Kevin Ryan, the dad of the group, the originator of Unbiased America. I mean, I'd say Grandpa, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Also, Michael Lee of Being Liberal Logic and Being Classically Liberal, and you know, we're signing.
And no longer of Detroit.
Yeah, no longer of Detroit, but Grand Rapids, one of the most conservative cities in the country. Am I right, Mike?
It is. It's a conservative stronghold, man. Justin Amash is a congressman here. A lot of libertarians should love that.
Oh man, you're lucky. You actually have a conservative representing you. I've never had that in my entire life. But next week we have Wayne Allen Root on, who's the author of The Conscience of a Libertarian and the new book, The Power of Relentless. Here it is. You know, it's all about succeeding and being libertarian and stuff. And I met him. He's a nice fella. We had a couple of drinks together and we made fun of Obama. But like made fun of his policies, not his personality. Actually, his personality is pretty bad too. But anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. You learned that you may not have known after the interview, or did you come out learning anything?
No, well, I'm obviously an expert on foreign policy, so I already knew most of that. But I was very impressed with Colonel West. I mean, we were talking after the show, and I made the point that you can tell a good leader by how effectively he answers questions. And I mean, he just flowed right into the answers. He knew everything he was talking about. You know, there was no I don't knows or anything like that. He was very impressive as somebody who really stood out as somebody who knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And you know, you don't have to agree with everything he says, but you know that he has the experience and he's intelligent enough to elucidate, you know, his answers, which, you know, it tells you why he's such a successful leader.
So the complete antithesis of a Grant Phillips, essentially.
Exactly. Okay. The opposite. Bizarro Grant.
I mean, was there anything on substance that I mean, he knew so much about the deal. Like, I mean, I had researched it, and I mean, there wasn't like I was trying to get him to a point where maybe he would have to think a little bit, I think, after the first question. And I don't know, he just kind of, it's like he read all 159 pages of it, really, because I have leafed through it to find things that, I don't know, and I, you know, heard other commentators talk about. All right, hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of episode 8 of Unbiased America Live. We have a regular band of misfits. We have Grant Phillips of We Are Capitalists and the Modern Libertarian in his hoodie, standing in solidarity with Trayvon. We have Kevin Ryan of Unbiased America. He's got a new haircut, and his hair has this tone to it that I can't quite pin down. It looks like he's standing in solidarity with Just for Men. We have
touch of gray.
Touch of gray to add a little sophistication in there. We also have Michael Lee of Being Liberal Logic, also of Being Classically Liberal. He looks like he finally was able to grow a beard. I think him and I have been, you know, meeting up on Google Plus. I've been teaching him to do push-ups, you know, and like eat steaks and stuff. So he's been able to grow a beard. Good for you, Mike. It's about time.
No, thank you.
So we had a lot going on this past week, obviously with the debate, which was a huge spectacle. I know there's a ton of Trump lovers on this panel here because, you know, that's all everybody wants to talk about is Donald Trump and Donald Trump this and that. I'm so sick of the Donald Trump thing. But first, let's talk about our little Alan West interview here. Kevin, was there anything, and tried to get him on something that hasn't really been discussed much? I didn't have a chance to ask about the treaty thing, but he mentioned that too. Like, it's not a treaty, and, you know, Congress not being, or the Senate specifically not being able to vote on it. He mentioned that. He mentioned pretty much everything that I was going to bring up. So he knew his stuff. And you're right, Kevin. The guy is a born leader. Grant hasn't watched it yet, so he hasn't done his due diligence.
No, see, I have a full-time job, unlike you, being unemployed and just being able to just spend my time however I want.
I know.
Damn hippie in California.
Don't you work at a 7-Eleven or something?
But not anymore. Not after I got shot. But on Alan West, though, I'm sure he did a great job. He's a really articulate guy. I've read a couple of his things on his website, and it's definitely good. So I'll be great. I'll be sure to watch it and leave rude comments on YouTube.
Yeah, just for the uber libertarians out there, I wanted to get into more questions about, if we just leave the Middle East alone, maybe they'd stop bothering us. If we just stopped supporting Israel, maybe that's the problem, that they would just leave us alone. We didn't have enough time. I didn't want to keep them too long. They gave us 15 minutes as is. I wanted more. But he was nice enough to come on, and hopefully we'll have him back again. But I mean, I'd really like to get him. I'd really like to get like a foreign policy analyst on here to answer those questions. Us talking about it really means little. Nobody wants to hear what Kevin has to say. Certainly, no one wants to hear what Grant has to say.
No. Well, you're a huge statist, so we all know you're gonna. Will is a neocon. He probably wants to invade China.
I don't know why we're not. I don't know why we haven't. I really don't.
Nuke North Korea.
No, seriously, let's get to the bottom of this. I'm going to ask you a question, Will, because we've been making fun of this since you started on the show. Are you a neocon? I mean, do you actually support? Do you support action, boots on the ground in Iraq? Do you support tougher action against Russia, for example? Should we be reinforcing Eastern Europe? I mean, what's your take on these things?
Just to give you a better idea of where I stand on foreign policy, have you ever heard of a man by the name of Agamemnon?
Never heard of him. Although I did have a minor in Greek classics, so.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, that guy pretty much embodies my foreign policy. You know what I mean? I'm looking for any reason to attack Troy at this point. And Troy could be fill-in-the-blank country. I want to go after it. I want to nail it. I want to take it out.
No, come on. No BS. Tell us
my foreign policy is common sense.
A lot of our guests, because a lot of our viewers are, they're isolationists, and they don't like. When we said Alan West was coming on, a lot of people were criticizing him, saying he's a warmonger and so forth.
No, I mean, pre-World War II, I would be an isolationist, but I think we learned at that time it's a little hard to be an isolationist, anymore. I think certainly with the global economy, and Mike always brings this up, and we talk about it a lot, and facilitating trade, certainly in the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, we're the ones that are keeping the peace there. We protect most of Western Europe from specifically Russia, and we've seen what happens when you have a feckless leader and a bad foreign policy with Russia. They start to take over areas of Eastern Europe. I don't think... I think if you were to just put it into I don't know, to make it quick and easy, it's whatever best protects the Constitution of the United States of America, like whatever is in our best interests and the best interests of our allies. That doesn't mean you invade countries, you wantonly invade countries. That's not what it's about. If it's in the best interest of national security of the United States of America. I don't think nation building is in our best interest. I don't think it ever was. I don't think it ever will be. I think wars are fought to be won, and if you're going to deploy your military, you do it with the intention of winning and annihilating the enemy. You don't do